All right, we are now live. I know that because the little button at the top tells me so. I love to see everyone calling in. I see names that have been on this webinar week after week after week. And if you didn't know or haven't looked at the calendar, 2 weeks from now is our 1 year anniversary of the Staying Connected webinar. So that's going to be a fun episode. I'll just let you know that in advance. We're going to give everybody a chance to log in here. We have a big group today. So no pressure, Kathy and Jim, but that big group that's registered, I'm sure is because of you. So don't mess it up, just saying. And it'll be fun and painless, I promise. So I'd love it. It is like the Price is Right and the big wheel to come through and see everybody logging on. And I didn't even have to say it because Amy from Drury is always up there to log on and say hi to everyone. So let us know where you're coming in from. Mary from Colorado and Ottawa, Illinois. Kurt, I love that you put Illinois at the end of that. Um, and uh, and we're gonna have our preview call. Our little prep call was fun with some of the things we started talking about and what you guys were doing. So I think there's some really great information that's going to come out of this. And I know it's going so quick, but Jim and Kathy, if you look over, I know you see all of your suppliers, that you've worked with, that are popping through. It just goes by like this. Um, as always, if you have any questions at all, which I know this group will, if you could put it in the Q&A, that'd be great because it populates it in one place for us. If not, and you put it in the chat, we are going to try and find it between the three of us. We will find it and get to it. And as always, I should thank Betsy Cooper, who partner in crime that helps put these together and also runs Tour Operator Land for us. So if you want some more information on Tour Operator Land or you don't know what it is, reach out to Betsy because it's a great tool, especially right now, to stay in touch with everyone, to know what offices are open, to know to get itineraries and royalty-free photos, and to plan those trips that we know we're getting inquiries on because Jim and Kathy told me so. So we're gonna get started because we always run out of time right when we're getting into the heat of the meat and the potatoes of these conversations. So as always, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself because you're going to describe what your company is focused on and what you do in market segments much better than I am. And we're going to go ladies first, Jim. So we're going to start with Kathy. Tell us a little bit about Brightspark by WorldStrides, kind of where you are and what your focuses are for the company.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the roundtable today, Sherry. Really excited to be here. I am with Brightspark by WorldStrides. That is our new name. We were Brightspark Travel and we now are partnered with WorldStrides. So very exciting changes with that. I have been with the company almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in July. And I have
working at 11? I mean, come on.
I know, right? I was 16 when I started. So I've been there a long time, worn lots of different hats. My focus now is the Springfield, Illinois market. I'm the account manager for all of the trips that go to Springfield, Illinois. And Springfield is very popular in the state of Illinois because it's deemed as Lincoln's hometown. And there's a lot of different sightseeing there. It's not just you're going to the state capitol to see the state capitol. There's the Presidential Museum. There's the old state capitol law office. There's lots of different things to see versus just taking a day trip and going to see your capitol. You get like bonus sites, so to speak. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm very passionate about Springfield and about Lincoln now. Kind of goes with the territory.
More so than you ever were.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And obviously our focus right now has been a lot of health and safety. Big focus for everybody, I think, in the hospitality and tourism industry. And, really making our customers feel safe and that we're ready for them and that we're ready to handle everything. That we're ready to handle everything for them and all the details, and comfort is really making people feel comfortable and safe, I think, is the big thing going forward.
Absolutely. And I know the giggle is because you looked over and saw Hannah in the chat. That was like, I'm from Springfield. This is great. I was going to tell you, when we were little, I don't even remember it. I have two sisters. We lived in Springfield, Illinois, I think for 4 months. We're all from the South, and my dad moved us up there, and my mom, who had never been out of Georgia before, was like, no. It was winter when we moved there, and I think we made it 4 months before Mom was like, nope, we're going right back down. But I love it. Thank you so much for being here and sharing, because we have a big group that is truly interested in what's going on in your market and with students and kind of what you're hearing. So love it, love it, love it. And Jim or James, do you want me to say all your names to be very formal? Jim, let us know what you do for Anderson. And side note, I was a prep call. I'm talking with Jim, and I'm like, so are you, what part are you in Ontario? Are you in Toronto? And he's like, I'm in Nebraska. So sorry about that. But Jim, tell us about what you do at Anderson.
Sure. Well, thank you. And first of all, thanks for having me here. And you guys have done a great job of communicating, keeping things alive during the last year. I mean, to me, that's been probably one of the most important things. So Anderson Vacation, well, first of all, Kathy, congratulations on 20 years. I kind of double your time plus 10 years in terms of my industry experience. And during that time, I've actually had the great opportunity of being a supplier. Spent some time with Mountaineer when it started. I was a DMO for Tourism Vancouver for 10 years, but I've been mostly in the tour market. So Anderson Vacations, we are a Canadian company. We've been around for close to 30 years, based in Calgary, Alberta. And we do a variety of product. We primarily focus on the Canadian market, and we cover it from literally sea to sea to sea. We do escorted tours, we do customized groups, and we also do independent travel, FIT. So we kind of cover a big spectrum. And then just to make it a little more interesting, we also have great programs in Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji and the Cook Islands. And it seems like a weird combination, but it's an amazing opportunity to cover some really unique areas. And from those markets, we also have a big inbound market. I personally handle the group market primarily out of the US, but I've been around so long, I kind of do a lot of different things. And that's the great part of working. I live in Nebraska, but I basically am constantly selling the Canadian product. So, we're excited about the fact that things are starting to open up. I mean, the US is definitely opening up quicker than Canada, which is a little frustrating. But I think we're all going to be there pretty soon. And we've been ready. We've been ready for a long time. So
exactly. We had all of last year to plan. Now we're ready for it to go. Yeah.
We're over ready almost. So, yeah. So that's basically us. I just would add that I had the good fortune of being the chair for the National Tour Association last year. And one of the greatest gifts of that was to be in way better communication with so many of our suppliers and people than what we normally do. So it's kind of a bonus, but I'm be glad to get rid of that bonus and get back to the regular part of things.
Regular part, right? Meeting in person, right? That's going to be nice rather than a phone call or a Zoom call. And I should say, Kelly has already done a shout out and said Jim loves Canada and Canada loves you. So even though you're not living there right now, he loves Canada as well. So I can't thank you guys enough for being here. And I know that there's so many similarities between both of your markets, but there's also some some pretty big differences. And Kathy, one of the questions that we get all the time from anyone that comes on that works with students is, are student trips going to happen? What are you hearing from operators? And it's so hard because it's school district to school district. What are you hearing from your groups, from your teachers? Has it switched from school trips to homeschool? Kind of people doing it themselves. So I'm going to let you answer that question, or I'm going to keep asking you more questions. So
Okay, that works. So everybody wants to travel. The need is definitely there. It's not if they're going to travel, it's when they're going to travel. And we are very focused on 2022. People need something to look forward to. We want to give that to them. So we are working very diligently, and a lot of people are ready, but they're waiting for government regulations to say, yes, it's safe. Yes, you can go. No, no quarantining after you go on these trips, that sort of thing. I think that kind of holds people back. So going forward, they're ready. Like as soon as it's deemed safe, people are going to start. It's like this pent up need to get out. And once we get the A-OK to go, people are going to be, I think, busting down the doors to get out. So we're definitely seeing 2022 is taking off. We actually had a trip go out last week domestically, and it went off really well. They felt very safe, very comfortable. They had a great time. They were exhausted. That's always the sign of a good trip. At least on our books it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they were so happy. And that's the biggest thing is safety, comfort will bring the happiness, and it will bring obviously our focus is educational, but we also do performance travel, and people are they're so happy to get back to regular life that they're going. And we've got groups scheduled for April. We've got groups scheduled for May, June, into the summer. I think it's just going to continue to go up as things open.
I love that. I love to hear that there's stuff on the books that people are booking. And Jim, I mean, kind of same question. You don't work with student groups, but FIT and group, are you seeing a difference between requests coming in? Is it more one or the other?
Yeah, definitely. Our mix is usually about 50-50 between FIT and groups. And the big thing we've been counting on, and it's coming through for us, is Canadians traveling within Canada. The challenge, of course, is that Canada has been locked down pretty tightly. I mean, you have certain provinces that you can't even go from one province to the other. Definitely the trend right now is for our independent travel. But we also started about 2 or 3 years ago to move away from big groups and to move into smaller group sizes, 22 and under. So the demand for that, I think, is going to continue to increase, along with the fact that we've also started to move into some more regional areas that are less populated. I mean, we'd already started that, so there's a trend for that. And then out of the blue, we're starting to get requests for 2024 for Australia again. So
you told me that yesterday. I was like, hey, you have a booking for 24. That's good.
Yeah. I think I'll be probably about 85 or 90 when that happens, but I'll be there to make sure it happens. But I think the other thing, the challenge for us right now is the groups that we have committed for this year coming out of the United States. That's challenging because we just can't tell them anything. We can't tell them when the border's going to open. And so there's a certain period where we then have to go back and say, realistically, how about moving it to September? And then we're starting to look at, we've moved them once, we moved them twice, and hopefully they're all still alive by the time we get them to the next stage. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's very positive. We're getting huge reaction on it. The challenge is making the solid booking right now because of the dates.
Is there anything? I mean, it's nice that the trends you thought were going to happen come through, right? You're a trendsetter. You thought you were going to be smaller groups or focus more on regional. Is there anything that you're doing to kind of give them a booking and comfort, or any type of comfort to go ahead and book now? Have you changed your refund policies or cancellation policies like a lot of people are doing?
Well, I'll just answer quickly. Yes, for us, what we've done, we've cut our deposit situation down for groups. It's like $100 We've really changed that. We haven't changed the terms and conditions too much because that becomes a challenge in that, we're all still in this to be profitable, and
Right.
you got to be careful that you don't set up standards for the short term. They're going to come and bite you later down the road. And but for us, most of it has been about really pushing back the deposit requirements and giving people lots of freedom to kind of move around. But we've kind of tried to keep to the basics of terms and conditions because they're there for a reason.
Absolutely. And Kathy, have you guys done the same thing with Brightspark by WorldStrides and trying to keep that Brightspark by WorldStrides? I grew up in the student market, working in the student market, so that's really weird for me to say. It's hard for me to call it Brightspark too, but that's a whole nother story, and I'm aging myself.
I know, and I started when it was educational tours, so I threw lots of names. We did, and actually, I'm very proud to say that we had the best refund policy in the student travel industry. We didn't struggle. We did what was right. We paid everybody back all of the money that they paid into us, regardless of cancellation penalties and regardless of when they had to cancel. The only thing that we retained was our in-home, it's not insurance, but I'm going to use air quotes because it's easier, insurance program called Refund Guarantee Protection. And we gave everything back minus the cost of the RGP. So which is approximately 10% of the tour cost. So really, people we knew that this pandemic was going to have far-reaching effects for everybody. And so they reviewed, the first thing they did was bring everybody home, because we had groups international, we had groups domestically out, and obviously borders were starting to close. So that was the first thing on, health and safety. We got to get these kids home, we got to get them back before borders close and they get stuck. So once that was taken care of, then they started to review the policies. And instead of, like Jim mentioned, we didn't change our terms and conditions, we made new terms and conditions. And we did a COVID-19 cancellation policy. And basically it was that everybody would only lose the cost of the refund guarantee protection, that little like 10%, and everything else that they paid into the trip, they got back as refunds. And then going forward, we have a flexible refund policy, a flexible cancellation policy. And we've just used that. And basically we just keep adjusting the dates of how long it's going to go through. And it's based on the safety of travel, because health and safety is always number one for Brightspark, for WorldStrides. We've always been on the same page in that regard. And we're not going to send people out into anywhere if it's not safe, if the government's not saying it's safe, if they're like, there's a restriction on unnecessary travel. Unfortunately, we fall into that category. So until it's said that leisure travel, group travel is available again or encouraged again, we're going to continue to adjust for people. We'll postpone trips with no penalties. So we've definitely just kind of evolved our policies to be most consumer friendly for the parents and the students.
I mean, that's really great to hear. And Jim had mentioned that he was able to move groups forward, right? When they felt uncomfortable, he was able to push them. That's harder with students. They may not be in the same class, it may be over a school year. Are you able to move stuff forward, or is that kind of why you had the cancellation policy that you did?
We initially, when we started, we were encouraging postponing.
Yeah. The
hard thing about the pandemic is nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows how long it's going to last. It's so much easier. So nobody knows how long this is going to last. And so when we postponed from spring of 2020 to fall of 2020, hoping that would work. And then some went from fall of 2020 to spring of 2021. And then the grade is now from 7th grade to 8th grade, now going into high school. And that's when they have to make the decision if they're going to cancel. Right. So We definitely tried to encourage postponing, and again, the whole keeping people looking forward to something, because you really need hope right now. It's really kind of what we've been trying to do, is give people hope and something to look forward to, trying to keep it, light. And with the pandemic, a lot of things just haven't been light. So we're trying to keep it light and keep people moving forward. But there will hit a point, if it's a 5th grade trip, yeah, we can keep moving it for the next 2 years. But if it's an 8th grade trip, those aren't possible to move.
Right. A question came in, and it kind of goes to what both of you have been talking about, kind of regional and the tours that were coming in. And specifically, Kathy, I think this was for you. You said you had a trip that just ran. The question from Lee was, where was it from? Where was it to? Was it a large group? And specifically for students, he's curious if it was double or quad occupancy.
Those are all super great questions. And I know the answers to some of them, but not all of them. I know that it was a group going to Florida, and I believe it was from the Carolinas. And they went to Florida. They went to Universal Studios, and it was a performance group. So they actually had arranged performances at a church and a school. And so but that was done, like they did it on their own. We facilitated the travel and the hotel and all that part of it. Meals for them included, that sort of thing. So it went from Carolinas to Florida. They loved Universal. They loved everything at Universal as far as their health and safety. They were so pleased with how it went, and they felt so comfortable. And I think I keep saying that, but the comfort level is really what's going to encourage people to travel and to move forward. Yeah. So I do not know what occupancies they were in. My guess would be double, unless it's families. Then they might put more people in the rooms.
And Jim, talking about occupancy level, have you changed the way that you're working with hotels? Have you looked for something different from them on your tours?
Yeah, that's a really good question. At this point, the answer is probably no. The biggest thing for us, because, well, for starters, when we do independent travel, it's a lot easier because you've got like anywhere up to maybe 2 to 6 people. So they're kind of responsible for their own spacing. Obviously, we would use only properties that we're really comfortable with, and so we keep definitely up on all the changes that are being made and the properties, what they're doing. We haven't really been faced with the group situation because all our groups got canceled last year. The groups that we have moving this year are most of them not moving until maybe August or September. So what we're doing, I mean, we are definitely following it. We're talking with the group leaders at all times, and anything new that we're putting in, we're putting a maximum of 26 so that we can space them if we have to on the coaches. But we've our own programs, our own escorted tour programs, we've always only put 26 people on a 56 passenger coach. It's been a selling feature for us. So we are kind of in the unique situation of not having to change that part of it. The biggest challenge is sort of, we talked about the other day for tour groups right now, is not so much the accommodation and the attractions, it's along that route. Most tour groups, the biggest thing is where do you eat and where do you pee? And those things are normally not the big deal, but they are kind of the harder ones to look at right now. And I was just going to step back a bit too and point out that when you asked about changes in conditions and that sort of thing, for us, the biggest thing, and I'm sure most tour operators have found it, the relationships that you develop over the year, the effort you put into it has come back so much to help us. We have survived because our hoteliers, our attractions, and our DMOs made it possible for us to do the right thing. We didn't get caught in that scramble. And so, those of you who are online who we deal with, thank you for that, because you made us look good. And you enabled us to do what was the right thing. And I know that's going to help us as we move down the road, but it'll also make that relationship stronger. I think we're doing the same thing in terms of trying to keep in contact with our main suppliers and have a day-to-day discussion as to what they're doing, or at least week to week.
I love that. And I love, we've had several webinars this year so far that talk about partnership and how important partnerships are to recovery moving forward. And thank you for reminding us that it was just as important last year when you were having to make all of these changes to call on your partners and for them to help you. So it's great to hear. A question has come in specifically for you, Jim, about staycations, and knowing that borders are closed, and you both have said, regionally you're looking at things. Have you guys done anything like that? Have you done anything within Canada that's more of a staycation in the community or just outside of the community to get things going?
Well, we've sure looked at a lot of things. I mean, one of the we're a small company. We'd fit into Kathy's company's little pocket. We've looked at a lot of things that are kind of outside of our realm. One of the things that we've done successfully is created more fly drive programs, which never really were a big thing for us, but programs that focus on outside of the big cities. The other thing that we did, which is a very Canadian thing, Canadian snowbirds tend to go south, but a lot of them couldn't this year. So we have people in motorhomes in a Soyuz BC that normally would be on the beaches in Florida. We've done some very, some unique ideas. We've never sold motorhomes in our lives, but what we did was we created a product to go with the motorhome rather than just trying to sell the motorhome. Same with the car, with the rental cars, and give people a bit of freedom. But Victoria, for example, is a great place for people from the prairies in the east who want to get away from the winter. I mean, we had hotels that were sold out, but they were sold out on 8 to 10 week durations.
Oh, wow.
You're kind of, it's kind of, with all due respect, it's kind of chicken feed in terms of profit, but it's a cash flow. It keeps us in the market. And it presents, just like Kathy was saying, it presents a sense of hope that next time you can do something different.
Right. And you're providing something that your clients are wanting, right? You're just, that it goes back to that partnership and trust factor that we talked about. We talked, and you guys both mentioned regional tours. So I'm going to ask the question because it generally gets asked every time. Are you changing? Like, has this caused you to change some of the ways you approach your tours? Are you looking outside the gateway? Are you looking to do multiple regions together instead of just one city? Are you looking at tertiary destinations or attractions rather than the norm that you might have in 2019? And either one of you can take that.
Kathy, go first.
Okay, I'll go first. We have started a national park trip, and that has started to gain more popularity. They had a small group that went in the fall, and it was about 15 people. And I believe it was adults, and they did the trip, and they did national parks, and they did a small circuit of them. And that was different for us because we don't do as much outdoor.
For adults, right? That's where I'm like, what was that? Did you say adults?
Yeah. So it was something different. And it's been starting to gain traction because this is lasting longer than we figured it would. And for this summer, people are signing up for that trip again. So it kind of was something new and different that we hadn't done in the past. I don't believe Washington, D.C. is going to go anywhere as far as our top market. That's where we bring most of our travelers. And, Springfield is going to come back. Everybody who goes to Springfield will go to Springfield again. D.C. will reopen again. But a lot of times we look for what our clients ask for. So it's not that we go out and seek additional destinations. It's more if somebody comes to us and says, I want to go to North Dakota, South Dakota. Do you guys do something like that? That's where we would reach out to like a DMO and say, what would you suggest? So it's more, our seeking out other destinations is more client-based. It's more supply and demand. If they demand it, we're going to find a way to supply it.
Got it. And
So-
Jim, what about Anderson?
Well, we've done a few things. I mean, part of our strategy in the last couple of years has been to get away a little bit from the traditional touring of Canada. So we've already started to move into, we've self-proclaim ourselves to be the experts in the Canadian Arctic. So it's a smaller business, but it's a very unique business and gives us a niche. So we've definitely pushed forward with that. But a couple of other things. One of our great partners in Western Canada is Rocky Mountaineer. They run the wonderful train between Vancouver, Banff, and Jasper. Well, this year they've moved. They're moving a train down into Denver and running from Denver to Moab in Utah. And so it was a natural for us to say, oh, well, our American clients can't come to Canada this year at the moment. So let's create some product that they can. So the following we have in the US, we've created probably about 15 or 20 different itineraries that we've kind of always had in the back of our heads, but we've created them around supporting a partner with a new program, which is Rocky Mountaineer, and using that as also an opportunity to go to the DMOs, to go to Utah and the states and say, yeah, we're interested. This is what we're prepared to do. We're going to develop some new product. It's not necessarily new in terms of the places, but it's definitely a new approach by putting the train part into it. So I don't know that we would have done that directly if we have to, but it's turned out to be very successful, and it probably has now opened up a market that we will continue to expand in. The other thing we've done is we've gone a bit against the trend in that we've gone back to our Canadian DMOs and said, what can you do that would entice us to do an Ottawa package or we've gone into Saskatchewan and done places that traditionally are not the huge markets, but they've been so supportive and so awesome to work with that now we've got programs that will continue to promote when this is, when we're back to whatever the new landscape looks like. So I think there's always, some of those opportunities you fall into, some of them you're pushed into, and in our cases, some of them our partners have kind of pulled us into, which is terrific.
I love that. And to that point, when you're ready to expand from, your West Coast with Rocky Mountaineer, Finger Lakes, Emily just popped up and said, hey, National Forest in New York, they have some great things. So there's no doubt in my mind that she's going to send you that information when you're looking to expand that program.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point. It's last year was horrible, but it's given you this opportunity to expand in things that you probably wouldn't have normally, and look for new products. So on that new product line, are you currently looking for products? And I know, Kathy, you said it's by request when people ask you for something, but are you gathering information on new product right now to have it in your portfolio?
Well, I would just answer and say absolutely. We're participating in what is the conference right now? Southwest. Oh, I always forget it. But
Go West.
Yeah, Go West. So we're active.
Happening this week. They're doing a great job.
Yeah, and so we have one of the great parts is that we do have some extra time. The Canadian system has allowed us to keep all of our staff, and so we also want to keep them busy. And so we've been able to move reservations and people into different areas doing product development, some research. So we have 2 participating in that conference right now, and they're already looking at expanding the program we had into Utah so that when we come in the next cycle round, we've done a lot of the research that normally I would be doing maybe next year sometime. So that's a positive thing. I think the other thing is that we have to be really careful because there's going to be this tsunami of interest. And also, as a smaller company, we have to be careful that we don't overextend the excitement of growing with the reality of the fact that you still got to find a base out there that you have to afford to go after and do the salesmanship on. So, but I think it's really positive time.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I've said this before to people that this is the first time I felt really positive, about the year. We always hope and we always say it's getting better and cases are going down and shots are coming out, but um and I think a million times we've said we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I really can right now. Which is awesome. And Kathy, about products, you take it a lot on request, but I'm sure you have an arsenal that you can pull from to talk with people. And are you looking to update that with some new and different ideas?
I think if we were going to be looking for anything in particular, I think it would be along the line of the national parks type thing, because that is so different from what we normally do. I mean, not that we don't do things outside, we do, but we don't do as much as what that trip did. The national park trip was very much outdoors and going to places that were outdoors, because honestly, we couldn't bring people to museums indoors.
Right.
So
I'm guessing that tour will never be offered to like a drum line or anything like that. That'd probably be bad for the animals. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We want to keep nature natural. But we're always open to new ideas, and we always, anything people want to send us, we do collect it. We do have what's called like our basic destinations. We do have a list of our base destinations and our primary destinations, so to speak. And then we have secondary destinations. And if somebody comes to us and they want to go somewhere, it's not on our list. Like I said, we do reach out and do DMOs with management approval. So it's definitely something that we can do if there's a need for it. We don't go out and collect a bunch of information on stuff that we've never heard of and that nobody's ever asked for. Being in the student market and education especially, we want to do the stuff that's educational and we want to give them what they're asking for. So on the Brightspark end, we are custom. So we definitely have, the cookie cutters that we can provide to people as a starting point. And then when they tell us, okay, can we add in the spy museum, or they want to change out and do the disabled veterans memorial, then we can make those adjustments. But we make every trip their own. So whatever they want to do, we want to give that to them in the best way that we can.
I love that. And Federico reminded us that Utah, Colorado, and Arizona are doing some programs together and mixing the states. And I think that's it. As soon as you said regional, because we've been talking about partnering with your competitor, or the East and West Coast partnering. Like the drag market is totally different now than it used to be. So it really opens up opportunities for everyone to work together. And I want to come back, Jim, because you mentioned reaching out to DMOs and kind of talking to them about, hey, what's going on there and what can the city offer, for us to bring tours in. Is there anything unique that you were looking for? Anything that would have sparked your interest and said, hey, yeah, that's something that is really cool?
I had somebody come to me, I want to say it was a year and a half ago, and she was looking for the Black Hills, one of the Dakotas. And that I had never really, that was totally off my radar. Obviously, right now I'm totally regionalized in Springfield, Illinois. But as a company, that hadn't been something that we had done before either. So that's more likely where I'm going to draw from. Like somebody asks me about something and I'll go and be like, oh, I've heard about this. If I see something come in from that vendor, for example, I'll be like, oh, that's in that area that they were questioning me about. So I would be more apt to pay attention to that because somebody had asked me for it.
Got it.
I just would add to that I think it's been a challenge for the DMOs because a lot of them, like everybody, have been the number, the timing, and the budgets and everything. But seeing in Canada some really interesting things. Saskatoon, which probably hasn't been on everybody's big map as a destination, has done a marvelous job of taking advantage of this time to bring out all the things that we might just have walked by the first time around and say, well, yeah, I could do those. And there's a way to market that if you get good support. Lily in Ottawa has done a great job with her museums of uh, taking this opportunity to present them. They do like I think every other week they're doing a kind of a tea time with a specific museum. And if you go and do a fan trip, say of Ottawa, you get to see all the museums in one day and you come back and you say, wow, that's too much. But by spreading them out like this, it's made it so much better, as a product developer myself. I couldn't have asked for a better time because I'm busy trying to develop product, but I'm not being pressured by my company to get it online right now. I can do a lot of research. I can figure out the operations of it, as opposed to sometimes when, we don't like to say we do this, but sometimes it's the first tour that actually does that. And, I think if you've had the ability to look down that tunnel and not see a train coming towards you, there's been some really great opportunities.
I agree. So we've had a couple questions come in, and Kathy, one specifically for you. And I know that you don't specifically handle, the Disney Kissimmee area, so we might need to find this answer out. But asking if you are looking for new hotel product in that area.
We're always looking for new hotel product in that area. For sure.
Got it. All right. So we didn't have to find that answer out. That answer is yes. Then the second question from Renee, and Renee, I miss seeing your face. I can't wait until we meet again in person. Hope you're well. Really looking at COVID protocols and curious as we emerge from the pandemic, if that is going to carry over, meals, and the way that you handle meals, room sizes, group sizes, do you think that those protocols that we put in place, and I mean, it sounds like, Jim, you were already at the 26 for the coaches, but is that gonna carry over, do you think, into 22, 23?
As far as meal protocol, like that sort of
Any
thing?
protocol that you've set up for COVID, if you're doing things differently now, for meals, is that going to carry over into how you operate normally? Is that going to become the norm? Group size smaller, is that going to become the norm? Those types of things.
Group size smaller, I don't believe that's going to become a thing. Just because the student market is really based, we have, variety, small to large. We have as small as 15 is our minimum, and we have as large as 8 buses at one time, or for one group, for example. So I don't believe the group size thing is going to be, I mean, not on our end. On the consumer end, it could be, where parents are more leery of sending students, or, there are kids with asthma, for example. Asthma and COVID, not a good mix. So that might be something where parents never had to think about it before. And now it might be more of a cautionary thing for them. So they may decide not to send their child with asthma. As far as our protocols, our health and safety is constantly evolving, constantly changing how we're going to do things process-wise. Motor coach loading and unloading, they're talking about that. Hotel check-in, hotel check-out. Meals are a big conversation piece right now. Mostly, I think, because capacities of restaurants aren't able to take groups. Right. Our typical bus size is a 56 passenger coach, and right now they can't take over 30, for example. So
people on the group that you just had, and the group you have coming up,
I think they were a little bit on the smaller side. I want to say they were around, I can't say for sure, but I do believe they were on the smaller size. I don't believe they were a full bus, but I know I did take a glance at that itinerary for that group, and a lot of their meals were voucher cards, like meal cards at Universal. So they it wasn't like everybody had to go together. They had their little card and they can go and eat at like the individual restaurants and right, not create their own crowd, so to speak. So I think that's going to be really different for a while. And I think it's really going to be industry standard on the restaurants, because I spoke with one of my contacts at a Golden Corral and they told me that industry standards are changing. So I think it's going to be those all you can eat buffets, which we love because lots of variety, they can move people in and out quickly. I think it's going to be more where the student isn't walking up and putting the food on their plate. There's going to be an employee who has gloves on and is possibly masked, is handing out the food.
So it sounds like your health and safety evolves with what the climate needs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have lots of regions to cover for that. So
Right.
every place.
They're different, some places.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just going to add that I think you're going to see, if you look at what's happened to the cruise industry, and they're going to be difficult. They're going to be a challenge to come back, but they're coming back with amazing kind of conditions and protocol. And I think you'll see that some of that will carry over in our industry. Maybe it's actually a positive thing, because there's nothing worse than having a beautiful tour and then, you end up in a place where people are absolutely packed into each other, and that changed the day. And I think the size of the groups, and also, I look at the fact that I would love to actually look at running a tour, maybe with 30 people on it, but I actually give them the option of 3 different restaurants. My driver's not going to be happy, but I think those kind of things are going to start to evolve, that there's going to be more flexibility, even in terms of how many museums you see in a day. I know from our perspective, a lot of our itineraries we're trying to move to that point where there is more flexibility. It's a pain operationally, but I think it's a thing that the clients are evolving towards. They don't want to be completely controlled anymore. And I'm sure kids are like that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
always, right?
Yeah.
So there's Hawaii's in the house. They want to know if you're doing anything in Hawaii, and if not, would you consider doing something in Hawaii?
I personally would love to be in Hawaii. We actually have a couple of groups who have expressed interest in Hawaii, and we'd love information for sure. It would definitely be something. And actually, personal story, I have a friend who had to change her destination for her honeymoon this past month because she was supposed to go to the Dominican Republic, and then they ended up switching to Hawaii because of the quarantine rules. So Hawaii being part of the United States would be amazing, because then groups who did want to go internationally and had to switch would have a good alternative for that type of situation. Yeah. So no, we definitely would love information.
Awesome. And Anderson, are they doing anything in Hawaii, Jim?
I spent probably the first 15 years of my life doing Hawaii.
Yeah.
Hawaii, I would love to go back, but it was that market for us is a challenging one, because it's primarily, a lot of it's controlled by the airlines in Canada, and it makes it pretty difficult to compete. The Canadian market, it's a big market for Hawaii, and I think it's one of the few markets that Canadians are still able to go to, but I don't see it probably in our lineup for the next little while. I would love it, but no, probably not.
Fair enough. So Lisa has a great question, and we've got this question a lot. Are you looking at cities with a safety designation? Does that give them a leg up when you're looking at destinations? Cities that have gotten a WHO approval or a WTTO approval on safety standards?
Our health and safety department has put together what they call a temperature rating. And it's a list of destinations with red, green, and yellow as their designations. And I do believe that is heavily taken into consideration when deciding if they're green being go, yellow being possible, red being not possible. So I do believe that is definitely a consideration. And part of it is also where they're coming from, and as to whether or not they're welcome in the places. In my experience right now, even just Springfield, Illinois, they're not ready to welcome groups back yet. So that's been our biggest thing is number one is health and safety. Number two is, can they accommodate the groups? And that's our biggest challenge right now is the health and safety is going well, but they're not quite ready. One of the things that's going to be, as we were talking about health and safety and evolution of it, is we can, and whether or not it's going to continue into like 2022, 2023, temperature checks. There are places in Springfield that are going to require temperature checks as the groups are arriving. I don't know if that'll happen again in 2022, but anybody coming right now is going to have temperature checks. So it's hard to say how long certain things are going to continue, and masks might just be something that we recommend going forward.
Right.
So lots of evolution.
Got it. And another question that came in, and this is from Casey, kind of a question / statement. Food halls are becoming really popular around the country. You know, we have several of them here in Tampa. You see them popping up all over, kind of giving you an option. Have you used food halls in the past in your tours? And is that something that maybe is even more so now an option because people can spread out and kind of go and do their own thing?
Are food halls like food courts?
Yeah,
Like
I'm not
food courts,
really
but
sure
kind
what
of
you're talking
maybe
about.
Well, a food hall, like we've had a lot of things pop up in Tampa and all over the world that, and it's other cities too, that are lots of independently owned restaurants that maybe take a stall all under one roof. You know, so it's a large area, but lots of different types of restaurants that normally would be standalone that provide an option, kind of counter service. And sounds like, you know, as Casey said, kind of sounds like what you're looking for to provide some of those different options with one location.
Okay, I would say those would be popular because people can kind of spread out and they're not creating their own crowds. And I guess it depends on the seating arrangements too. So they'd have to be, right now, speaking like today, it would have to be some socially distant
Indoor, outdoor. Yeah.
Right. But as going forward, I mean, that wouldn't be as big a deal, but it is always nice. I know lots of groups who like food courts, and it sounds like it's the same type of theory. And they love to have the options and variety and choices. People love choices. Anytime they can make a choice, they are so excited about that. So I do believe that will probably become more popular as we evolve.
I see a lot of that information in your future because Casey and Heather from Grapevine, Casey from Minnesota and Heather from Texas already popped it up on there. So watch that. It's coming your way. So clearly, I told you guys yesterday this was going to go very quickly. We haven't even gotten into like the marketing and kind of unique selling point thing. We have 6 minutes left. So we're gonna talk about marketing for just a little bit before we do some final thoughts. Are you actively marketing right now? And how are you doing that? Marketing kind of stopped. It was all inspirational last year. Let me just keep in front of people and let them know that there's places to go when the time is right. We're now, you know, actively selling. Things are opening up. So what kind of marketing are you doing, if any, to reach people? No, I'm going to start with you, Jim.
Oh, well, quickly, yeah. A big chunk of our business comes from travel agents, from travel professionals. We have maintained throughout the whole time, in Canada especially, a contact with the agents. Our director of sales has a kind of a Thursday afternoon wine party every 2 weeks. And she has a huge following. Over 500 agents now come into this. And what initially started as just sort of a release that was meant to be no promotion, now we've had DMOs and provinces say, can we be a part of that? And so our promotion, a lot of it is kind of a combination of having an on-site thing. It might be cooking clams that you just dug up on the shores of Nanaimo, or something unique like that, and combining it with an hour presentation. I mean, we're like everybody else. We don't have a lot of money to spend at the moment. So most of our premise is to keep in constant touch, make sure everybody knows what we've got so that when they got the client, they think of us first. And somewhat a little bit of online marketing, but probably won't kick that in until we know the markets are open.
Got it. And what about you, Kathy?
We never stopped marketing. During the times where we couldn't travel, we were marketing, talking about our refund policies and talking about, you know, inspiration for the future and what would you like to do today, and just keeping ourselves in front of people. So email blasts, and I don't think we did as much like paid stuff. It was more organic, but we never lost our presence. We were always on Facebook. We were always on Instagram. You know, we were always on our social channels. We were keeping them up, and we were continuing to field, obviously, the questions about refunds and inquiries and stuff. And now we're taking care of our retention clients and keeping in touch with them because they're going through a lot right now. And so we're kind of acting as, how are you doing? What's going on? How's school? And so it's more, we're in a relationship. It's not just they're our clients, they're our friend, they're our travel partner. So it's more partnership, and we're here for you. You need a virtual tour of Springfield, Illinois? Here's the information I have for that. And we're giving all of that virtual stuff is free. And it's going out, and that's how we're keeping our relevance, is by providing the tools that people need for their lessons right now in this remote virtual hybrid world.
Right. And I love what you said. I mean, I think to expand on that, I think this entire industry is relationships, right? Which is everyone on this call and you guys coming on and doing this call. And I love that flows over into your client base as well. Mm-hmm. And Jim, my follow-up question generally is always, hey, how do people get involved in that? But it sounds like you've already done that. You've already reached out to destinations and partners to be involved in that digital call, you know, that allows you to do some training in addition to having fun and building that relationship.
One thing we do that does, I mean, we've done it forever, but it's just become even more valuable, is we do a destination planner. It's about 180 pages. It's almost anything you could ever want to know about Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And we used to print it. We didn't print it anymore. It's virtual, and it's become much more valuable because we can change it. So
like that, yeah.
That's if you want to find out what we do, go online, and everything you ever wanted, even if you don't use us, is there. So that's become a tool we've had for a long time, but it's way more valuable than it ever was.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a quick question about staffing, and I think you mentioned earlier, Jim, that you were able to maintain all your staff, but and you know, and the question, you know, was if you lost staff, is there a timeline on when it's coming back operationally, things like that? But you did mention that you were able to maintain all of your staff at Anderson through this.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple of turnovers, but we have a relatively small staff, so we've been fortunate. Our owners have been really great about making sure that we stay in place.
That's great. So we're down to 1 minute now, so I'm going to ask you final thoughts. And if anybody has any questions, you can shoot them to me via email, and Jim and Kathy will be happy to answer them, and we can get the answers back out to you. So final thoughts, words of wisdom. If you have a crystal ball hanging out in a drawer somewhere at your desk, pull it out and tell us what you're thinking for the rest of the year. Jim.
Kathy, okay.
First.
There's a tsunami coming. Every single presentation I see, we know that people are just dying to travel. The trick is to be ready for it. I think the challenge we have is that some of us have kind of sat back, and all of a sudden we might get buried by it. So just be ready for it and be excited, because, you know, I've been through SARS and bird flu and just about everything else. And this is a harder one to come back from, but it's coming, and be ready for it.
I love it. Kathy, what do you think? Words of wisdom moving forward.
Absolutely. Be ready, be prepared, and look forward to it, and start fast. Start now. even if it's not until 2022 at the end of the year, just start now and give people something to look forward to. We need to keep inspiring and keep them hoping and continue on, because it's coming. Like Jim said, the tsunami will be here.
I love it. Thank you for taking the time and taking an hour with us. I told you it would go fast and it went super fast. So I appreciate you guys being here and sharing. It means the world to everyone on this call that we can interact like this and hear what's going on with you and get your insight and kind of make plans that work for their companies as well. We will be back next week with another great conversation. And as we talked about some virtual shows out there, I will do my shameless plug that we are doing our Connect Travel Marketplace virtually, April 20th through the 22nd. Generally more of an international focus, and each day will be focused on a different market to make it easier for you to pinpoint and focus on exactly what you need to this year. And until next week, have a wonderful weekend. Jim, Kathy, again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see everybody again next week.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.